Hi, Peter Hackett here with John West at the International Hypoxia Symposium in Lake Louise, Canada. We're lucky to grab John for a few minutes for an interview. John, you've been coming to this meeting for quite a long time.
Forever, yeah.
What do you recall about the first time you came to Hypoxia?
Oh boy, you know, I'm not sure I can do that. I think it was at Banff Springs, but I'm not sure about that. And I don't know if you know the story, but the story was that originally it was at Banff Springs with Charlie Houston and so on, and then Herman Rahn came along and drove up to, I'm not quite sure how it happened, to Lake Louise and said, "This is it, you know, can't get any better than this, you know." And so that was the story.
Yeah.
Although the earlier ones were at Banff Springs,
yes.
And also there was one, at least, at Jasper.
Correct.
I remember, which is pretty remote, and then of course here, and I don't know how many I've been to, but lots.
I think you've been to most of them. In fact, we count on you to come here and to inspire us. What has this meeting meant for you over the year? Why do you continue to come?
Oh, it's a wonderful way of meeting colleagues in high altitude physiology, medicine. I mean, even on this occasion, which, I'm feeling a little bit out of it now because I keep meeting people. When I say, I met a guy today from Bayreuth, and I said I was there in 1953, he almost fell off his chair. It was true. I went to the opera in 1953. Anyway, no, I mean, I think it's just it's unique. I mean, there is no other group of people, no other meeting where you get this concentration of people interested in high altitude medicine and physiology, and so it's very special.
That was my next question, of how do you see it unique? And one of the unique aspects is the integration of the clinicians and the basic scientists, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you give us some thoughts from your tremendous perspective as the Dean of High Altitude Physiology, really, in medicine, how the field has progressed over the last 4 decades that this meeting has been taking place?
Yes, well, of course the science has progressed enormously. Subjects like high altitude pulmonary edema, high altitude cerebral edema. Well, the session we had this morning, for example, was an example of cutting edge stuff. But also, of course, the whole business of the physiological mechanism of hypoxia has changed out of all recognition. I mean, if somebody came along from when I first came to these meetings and to the meeting today, they wouldn't know what people were talking about. The whole, the molecular basis of it is, of course, changed tremendously, and I've kind of opted out on that a bit. So it's, and it's still moving fast. So it's very stimulating.
Very stimulating. I have to ask you, I mean, one of the things you're best known for, of course, was the 81 Everest expedition. And you presented the results here in 83, I think it was, or maybe it was even, yeah, it must have been 83. That was an incredibly bold thing.
Yes, I mean, that was a fantastic...
It could have been a disaster.
Absolutely. And, I mean, the fact that you're still here is one of the most remarkable things ever. I mean, I hope all the audience know that you were stuck upside down near the summit of Mount Everest with the evening coming on, completely alone and almost certain to die, and here you are as sharp as ever, so it's very remarkable. I should say that, shall I say a word or two about the way Emory came about, because of course I was on the Silver Hut expedition back in 1960, when most of the audience were probably still at school or whatever, that was very remarkable too, because prior to 1960 I had no particular interest in high altitude. I'd been interested in the lung, and I'd been working on that. I was at Hammersmith Hospital in London and looking at the distribution of blood flow in the lung, and I happened to sit next to somebody at a meeting of the Physiological Society, and she said, "Did you know that Griff Pugh and Ed Hillary were arranging a physiological expedition to high altitude?" And I said, "I didn't know, but I'll contact Griff." And of course that was a very exceptional opportunity. And you know, we made a large number of measurements at 5,800 meters, 19,000 feet, and also made the first measurements, more or less, at extreme altitude on the Makalu Col at 17,400 and whatever it is meters, Mike Ward and myself. So I always used to say that I hold the world's highest measured maximum oxygen consumption, and there were only two of us at the time, and the other one had high altitude pulmonary edema. As a matter of fact, I think he had high altitude cerebral edema as well.
Yeah.
Mike was in bad shape. Yeah.
That was which person?
Mike Ward.
Mike Ward himself.
Yeah, Mike Ward.
Yeah.
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 Yes, we put together the bicycle ergometer on the Makalu Col and made the measurements there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was very special. But of course, that started a tremendous interest in how, you know, what happens at even higher altitudes, and that was the stimulus for AMRI, the American Medical Research Expedition to Everest.
Didn't you think AMRI going to Everest was even more dangerous than Makalu?
Makalu was dangerous, and Ed Hillary developed a stroke, and it was a big mess at the end. And I had one of the things I did. Fortunately, I was relatively fit, and we had some emergency oxygen, which I used to get up to the col. And it was a disastrous situation trying to get Pete Mulgrew off the mountain alive, and I gave. How much to say, I don't know, but Pete Mulgrew was uncontrollable, and I gave him some morphine, which made him go to sleep, and we tied him up to a couple of backpacks and trundled him down. It was a perilous descent, though. It was remarkable that he survived, and of course he developed very severe frostbite of both lower legs. I sometimes wonder whether all my morphine had something to do with it. Anyway, he survived, which was very remarkable, and yeah, so that was very dramatic. I mean, on Everest, as you know, we were pretty lucky, particularly with you, and there was no serious problem, I think you could say, on Everest at all. I mean, we had no serious injury, and and it was more luck than good management, I would say.
It was very lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, as I started out to say, it's a very bold thing. It could have been deaths or injuries. Speaking of students, you've been quite an inspiration at this meeting for hundreds of students that, you know, Hypoxia has put a big emphasis on having students attend.
Yeah.
And you've been a wonderful inspiration for those students. Have you also personally developed relationships here over the years that have contributed to advances in your career and ideas?
Oh yes, very, very much so. And most of them, you know, you can't really recite them. I mean, they're relatively random meetings and so on. Actually, I've met some very interesting people at this meeting.
So what advice do you have for future Hypoxia goers and organizers?
Well, you know, I'm often asked by young people, suggest an area of interest, something like that. But I think it's really what you like. I mean, I became extremely interested in high altitude following the Silver Hut expedition. It became an enormous interest, and I would say the most important thing is to follow your interest. Of course, you've got to work hard, and it's important to work with good people if you can do that. But the most important thing is to follow your interest and work hard at it. You know, the payoff is terrific. The satisfaction of seeing the science develop is very, very satisfying. Yeah.
Well, you had the opportunity to go to Silver Hut. A lot of people here have the opportunity to hear people like you and others. So hopefully that'll help them decide what really interests them and give them some new opportunities.
We hope, yeah.
Thanks very much for your time.
Okay.
I really appreciate it.
Peter.
Great to see you here. After, 40 years now we've been doing this. It's fantastic.
Yeah.